Thank you for joining us today. This webinar is on how to choose your event venue. And who am I? Right? I am Heather Pilcher, CSEP, CMP, and I am the CEO and executive producer for Blue Spark Event Design. I have been in the industry over 25 years. I have a master's in hospitality, a BA in public relations from University of Florida. Go Gators. I drink a lot of black coffee. I'm the mom of three boys and a wife of an amazing man. And you'll often find me running or attending an Orange Theory class. So that's me. And what are we going to do today? Who is this webinar for? This webinar is for busy professionals who have been asked by their leadership to create an event or host a conference at a hotel who look like this when they are asked to do it. We want to go from this to this. Right? We want to be the shining star in your company and get the perfect venue at the right budget, on the right goals, and all the things for you as well as the leadership. So this is what we're going to cover. So here we go. We're going to talk about event goals. We're going to talk about why this step is really crucial. We're going to talk about assessing what your hotel or your event needs. And we're going to understand what you need in the contract to protect you and the conference or event itself. So here we go. So we're going to define your event goals first and foremost. I get a lot of questions about this. Why is this important? If you don't know the why, you're going to have problems answering the rest of the things that are in this presentation. The why is important. It's one of the first things we ask our clients. Say you want 50 people to gather in October and you want to do it at this kind of hotel and you want it on these dates. My question is, why are you doing it? What's the purpose? Are you gathering a sales team to kind of do a kickoff for the next year? Is it an incentive trip where you're rewarding somebody for doing something amazing for your company? Is it I don't know, a user-based conference where you have a software platform and you really need to test how these things go in these different companies, like get feedback directly from the user? Like all of these are very different scenarios. So if you don't know why you're gathering, we need to start back at square one and figure out the why before we move on. So when we do goals, we like to do them in SMART goals. Just having an overarching like, hey, I want to gather some people and do some things is not really helpful in a business setting. So these are ways to streamline your goals into a measurable, consistent, and intelligent communication for why you're doing it, right? So we want to be specific about our goals. We want to be measurable. We want to be attainable. We want to be relevant. And we want it to be time-based. All five of these are important. So here's what an example of this looks like. Say your leadership comes to you and says, I want to celebrate the sales team. When they're celebrated, they do better, they sell more, it's good for the company. That's what I want to do. It's a great goal, but you need to be more specific about it. How are you going to measure the success of it? How do you know where you're going? How do you know what time of year? What are the dates? Whatever. So this is where you're going to narrow down these different elements and get a very attentive to why and how. So specific. Here's a good example. Again, the sales force. Let's say you have 10,000 people in the sales force. Maybe you only want to celebrate the top three. Great. That's 300 people out of the 10,000 that are in the sales force. And you want to go to a 3-day conference in the Caribbean. Perfect. Now you have 3 days. Again, quantitative things that are very specific. And now you have a budget. So leadership says you can spend this much money on the conference. There you go. On average, if it's this would say maybe it was an incentive program, 4,500 or 4,000 tends to be the average, including flights and hotel and food and maybe decor and activities and maybe unique giveaways or experiential things. So it's a good place to start. Now, how do you know if it was a success? Right? So your leadership says, we did this, but I don't know if anybody liked it. Well, that's when surveys get to be involved, and those are measurable, right? So the goal might be 80% of the people that are coming to this conference or the incentive trip, I want them to think it was awesome. The event was satisfactory. It met the goals of what I thought it was going to be. I love it. I'm going to work hard to do this again next year because it's important to me and the company. So again, maybe 90% or more want to do it again. Now, you also want this to be attainable because we could design the most fabulous incentive trip you could ever have, right? But if you don't have the budget for it and leadership says you can't do it, that's not attainable. Or if you do it, I say you want to go to Asia, it's too far, it's too much time out of the office. Again, not in line with the goal of the leadership of what we're trying to do, it's not attainable. So it's got to be attainable and approved by leadership. It's got to be relevant. Salespeople like to be rewarded for their efforts. A lot of times that bumps up sales for the future year, makes them work a little bit harder and a little bit harder. So the relevancy is important here. And then time-based, you need to know what framework you're working in. So is this, for example, here it's your event's going to be in 2027. Gives you enough time to get it planned, gives you enough time to market it, to talk through it, all of that fun stuff, right? So those are examples of how you can make a specific SMART goal. And then once you have all of these together, now you can start working on the budget, right? So you have $4,500 per person, you know how many people are coming. Because if any of those are not in concrete or at least close, you're all over the board. You're like 1,000 people might come or 30 people might come. That's a very different budget. But if you're specific and you have SMART goals, now you have a place to start. You have an overarching total budget. And then you, as a planner, you start breaking that down into sections of what you want to spend it on, right? So what did we cover? Defining your roles. Know why you're having your event. KPIs are very important for the company as well as the purpose of the event. Make sure you do your goals in SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And then make sure you have a clear budget for every project and event that you guys have been asked to do. So now you have a budget, you know why you're doing it, very important. You want to assess what you need in an event venue or a hotel. Things you're going to need to consider in location, right? So you've got 300 people, $4,500 a head. What are you going to do with them? A lot of this goes into demographics and what they like to experience and kind of what your leadership likes to share with or experience with them. If is it bonding, is it selling and buying in one spot, whatever it is. But all of these things come into play. So location, what season are you going in? In which hemisphere for that matter? Like if you want to do winter in the United States, you want to do winter in Australia. Very important. Different, same month or same season, different months, right? But what do you experience? Are we going skiing? Are we going to the beach? Are we going to theme parks? Are we doing hiking? Are we rock climbing? What are we doing? So the weather plays into all of those activities and the location you're headed. Access. How far away is this location from your guest's home starting point? If all of your guests are rural and they're already doing one airlift jump to a major airport to again get a connector to wherever you're headed, you probably want to consider whether or not you're going to another small rural location, because if they're doing 3 or 4 transfers, those 80% event satisfaction surveys might get lower and lower because it's such a long travel time to get there. Now, there are some places that are worth it, right? You're going to Bora Bora for your incentive trip. It might be a really long flight from wherever you're headed in the United States. That might be worth it to you, but it is something to consider. And then distance to the airport. A lot of our clients like to be 30 minutes from the airport. Some of our clients are okay with an hour. We had one client in Costa Rica, fine with an hour and a half. But how long are your good guests going to be willing to do that? So it's very important to consider. Every time we do a sourcing sheet for our client, we always put the distance from the airports to the hotel. Also consider local attractions, festivals, tours. A lot of times when you have a bigger conference, they go to big box hotels, big markets. You know what also goes there? I don't know. March Madness, Super Bowl, like really big tennis tournaments, soccer. You know what else happens in like awesome cities like New Orleans? Mardi Gras. So you have to be aware of what is locally driving leisure guests to the area at the moment as well. Olympics too, something to consider. So be aware of what the that time frame is going to include. Like I said, if you want to go to New Orleans and you really want to experience the culture and the French food and that kind of stuff, you probably want to avoid Mardi Gras. The crowds are going to be crazy. The experiences that are going to be available are going to be limited. The offsite locations are probably already booked. Not great. And then if you have a large conference for 1,500 or so and you really are desperate to go to whatever location it is, if it doesn't also have offsite locations that fit into the agenda of your conference, the hotel might be perfect, but the offsite location options don't make it a great location. So all good things to consider. And then there's low season and high season. This goes back to budget. So just because you have $4,500 per person doesn't mean that you want to spend all the money on the hotel. Or maybe it does. Maybe you want to go to Four Seasons and that's how you're going to convey the value of what they've done for the company is put them up in the most expensive or the most elegant or most lush hotel. But if you're more interested in activities and offsites, you have to kind of play with the budget. So maybe you go in a low season. In warmer weather clients in the United States, warmer weather climates in the United States, Florida, Phoenix, sometimes Dallas, because it can be still cool in the winter-ish times. January through April, very popular. Most of the people up north who are buried in snow want to come down and do their annual meetings or sales kickoffs or whatever in the sunshine. And that's where you find it. So that can be high season. If you want to do low season, maybe you do shoulder seasons like May or June in Florida, or maybe August and September. But going back to weather, you also got to be aware of weather phenomena. Like, I don't know, August and September is also hurricane season or part of hurricane season in Florida. So you got to be aware of that when you're choosing the time. Now we're talking about style of property, okay? All inclusive. This is often found in the Caribbean. There are some in the United States, but the Caribbean has a lot of these. And this is where you are based on the per person per room. So it's not a European plan where you just buy the room and tax. The per person per room includes food and beverage the entire time you're there. So this can be a really great way to do an incentive trip if somebody has a tight budget, but they want to give them a lot of value and they want to have a lot of free time to do stuff on their own, right? So you might take your 300 people and say, I really want to go to this all-inclusive. They're going to spend 3 days. They're going to eat till their heart's content. They're going to play volleyball. They're going to go on the beach. There's a lot of water activities and things to do. And I know that the food and beverage won't increase at all because that's already included. It's a great option for certain people. What about family friendly? If your conference or event draws not only the guest or the attendee, but their families, it's going to be important. Like, what if you need bathtubs in the room? What if you need double bedded rooms? What if you need a really cool pool and a lazy river to attract that guest to bring their family to the event? All things that need to be considered. What about the vibe? We have a couple of clients that are very trendy and chic, and they want the hotel to reflect the brand of their company, and they want it to be Instagrammable. So they want it to be something that's unique and interesting where that would reflect not only the products that they provide, but who the people are attending. So the vibe of the hotel is very important in addition to the other elements. We already talked about room types. Again, if you're doing an incentive trip, maybe people are bringing a spouse or a partner. What if they're not? What if they love their sister more than anything in the world and they need two beds in the room? If you go to a property that is primarily adult only, they have more king bedded rooms than they do double bedded rooms. And then on the flip side, if you maybe you're pairing four of your employees up and putting them into the room to save cost, you want to make sure the double bedded rooms are double bedded queen rooms so two adults can sleep in one bed. I don't recommend that, but you could do it if you need to. And then topography, right? Beaches, mountains, deserts. What's the goal? We talked a little bit about this as in terms of like weather, but let's say you settle in California. California has a lot of different topography. It's got mountains, it's got beaches, it's got vineyards, it's got rock climbing, it's got all kinds of stuff. You can go skiing, you can ride a buggy in the desert, like all kinds of stuff. So you really need to focus in what you want the experience to feel and look like. All right, so now you know kind of the location, what you're headed, what you're narrowing it down. And now it comes to dates, rates, and space. Just because you love being in the mountains and just because it fits in the budget, because just because you love the Four Seasons, doesn't mean that they have the dates available for you. So you kind of need to narrow it down by dates, rates, and space. And if you know the budget, if you get back RFPs or proposals, sorry, from people, if the rates are out of your budget, you know automatically that's not a good fit, right? As opposed to falling in love with something that's out of your budget, going, oh, I bet I could make it work. Nope, it doesn't fit, doesn't fit. Move on. And then as far as the space goes, you really need to deep dive into the meeting space. Is it a general session that has to fit 1,200 people in rounds? Is it maybe a hosted buyer scenario where you have to fit so many different tables with two chairs and spaced out evenly, which takes up a lot of space in a meeting room? Is it a welcome reception only, or you only want to do dinners on the beach? All of these are important. So you got to take a look at dates, rates, and space. And then amenities on site. Your guest might be the one who's attending, but what about their people they're bringing with? Sometimes the spouse and partners, the men and women who are attending with their partner, want to go to the spa. What's the level of spa? We've been to hotels before where it's an outsourced business that only comes in when there's appointments. Is that the spa experience you want? Are you looking for whirlpools and steam rooms and cold plunges and hot plunges? And are they co-ed and all of that fun stuff? That could matter to your guests. So know what the spa provides. What about golf? Do you guys do a golf tournament? Do they have rentals on property? We've done golf tournaments all over the country. Sometimes they have limited rentals, and not a lot of people travel with a set of their own golf clubs. So, do they have left, right, men's and women's? What about golf carts? Is it a walk-only course? Is that going to be bad for your demographic? What if they skew older? That's not great. And what about on-site restaurants? Having a lot of opportunity and a lot of options on site where guests don't have to travel offsite to get there is an important element for different conferences. We have a client that does not offer lunch during their conference. So 1,000 people, when they break at noon, we need to know that there's enough restaurant or outlet opportunities for all of them to go grab lunch, have a break, recharge, and then come back and be ready to go at 1:30. If not, that might be an important thing to consider with booking the property. And then kids club. Say you have guests that are coming, but they kind of want to make a vacation at the end, but so they have to bring their kids with them at the beginning. You want your guests to be in the session and listening and learning, but you also want something fun for the kids to do during the day. So that's when a kids club comes into play. On-site services. We were doing a site visit a couple weeks ago that audiovisual was included in the rental. And we were like, that's amazing because audiovisual can be a hefty price depending on what you're doing with it. So always ask, do they have it on site? Is it included? What concessions can we have? All of that fun stuff is good to know. Bellman, porterage, housekeeping. Housekeeping's gone through a crazy loop since COVID. During COVID, nobody wanted anyone to go in their room for any reason ever. And then it became a choice. And then they were working on getting the staff back. So it was limited, right? So they could offer it sometimes and then they couldn't. And now it's more of a choice. I've seen a lot of properties with the major brands offer more points if you decide not to do housekeeping. So it just kind of depends. Bellman and porterage stuff, if you have a demographic that skews older that may not want to lug their luggage all the way to their room if it's really far, this can be really important. Vegas is a great example of this. So sometimes your room is on the other end of a football field from when you checked in. So having those delivered to your room, very helpful. But if your hotel doesn't offer it, something to note. Room service, also something that's gone up and down and around, right? Again, during COVID, nobody wanted them in their room, but prior to COVID, almost every hotel offered hot room service if they were a big resort. And then it went to nothing. And then it went to cold prepackaged foods. And then now we're kind of hit or miss. Sometimes they offer hot food and sometimes they still offer the cold. There are a few that still don't offer room service at all, but it's something to ask if it's maybe most of your guests eat breakfast alone in their rooms before coming down and working the conference. But if they don't have any outlets or if your hotel is isolated and they can't walk to get breakfast, either on site or off site, that's going to be a problem. So something to know. Concierge, if your guests have a lot of free time and they want to see, maybe do a walking tour or know what the best restaurants are around the outside the hotel or maybe a cultural or attraction experience, concierge is going to be a great fit for that. Recreation department. This is kind of more of an all-inclusive thing. If there's water sports, if they want to do like a volleyball tournament in the pool or whatever, it's nice to have those activities already there built into the experience at the hotel. So again, assessing what you need in an event venue or hotel, location, style of property, amenities, and on-site services. All very important things to consider. Now, you have your goals, your SMART goals, I should say. You have your budget. You kind of have an idea of where you want the location and what the services should be provided for your group specifically and what's going to be the best impact. How do you take all of that information and narrow down the search to maybe the top 3 properties for where you want to be? Here are your options. You can call the hotels directly. So you can call the first hotel, explain all your details, get a proposal, hang up the phone. Call the next hotel, explain all your details, get a proposal, hang up the phone. Same idea. So it can take a lot of work, labor intensive. You can also use a hotel or venue RFP software system like Cvent, where you can put in your RFP once and then it shoots out to a variety of hotels in the location you're looking for. You can use the Conventions Visitors Bureau. They are great locally as far as knowing boutique hotels and unique event venues. I will say that they, depending on the type of CVB, they may only represent the members who are part of the CVB. So that is a caveat and something to consider. If you are really brand driven, because you know a lot of your employees are loyalty members for Marriott or Hilton or Hyatt, reach out to the national sales team, and they can maybe help distribute your RFP specifically to their brand properties. You could also use AI agents. If you want to get really specific with your prompts for what you're looking for, how much space, how much rooms, and try to load that into an AI agent and see what it spits out, it might be a starting point. I would not guarantee that all of the information in there is accurate. And keep in mind, right, it's only, you only get out what you put into that. So if you're not really specific, it's going to spit out what it thinks you want. And it can be a frustrating process. And it's still a software that's developing, right? So you can try it. It's the first place to start. And then once you narrow it down, actually double check or triple check all of the information on a real website for the hotel, or maybe from a professional event planner or the Convention Visitors Bureau. Last one is to hire a professional planner or agencies and utilize their relationships that they have with the hotels and brands and experiences in the market. So you can explain all the RFP stuff for them. They take the stress off of you for trying to find the perfect fit for what your goals are, and then they can prepare a pretty presentation that you can share with your leadership. All right, so you found it. You're in the location. You've narrowed down the 3 properties down to 1. You're going here. Now, what do you have to look for in the legalese for the contract to help support the goals of the conference? Top 3 to protect your bottom line. Cumulative room blocks versus pattern room blocks. So the difference is cumulative room blocks are the total room nights booked for your conference. For example, if you have a conference that is Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night for your room block, and you'd say you have 100 rooms per night, your attrition level that you negotiated is 80%, which means as the corporate client, you are only required to meet 80 room nights on Thursday, 80 room nights on Friday, and 80 room nights on Saturday. But you only hit 70 rooms on Thursday and 80 on Friday and 80 on Saturday. If you have a pattern-based room block, the difference between the 70 and 80 on the Thursday night, you are responsible for, means you have to pay the hotel for. If it is a cumulative room block, if maybe say Susie, John, and Alex all come in on Monday because the hotel you chose is awesome, maybe they are going to stay Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then they're going to also extend and stay Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night, right? So their rooms, even though it's outside that room block window, count for the cumulative room blocks. And that's what you want, the total room block count or the room night count, as opposed to pattern. If you do a pattern-based room block, you would still pay the difference. It doesn't matter if Susie, Adam, and Alex come in early, right? So something to be aware of. And then you want an audit clause. This is really helpful for large conferences where everybody books their hotel room direct. We provide a booking link on registration systems often and say, hey, we're going to this Hilton. Go ahead and fill out your registration and don't forget to book your room. Here's the link. But people book their rooms in a variety of fashions. Sometimes they book it through the Hilton app. Sometimes they'll do it in Travelocity, Expedia. Sometimes they'll call the hotel directly. If they escape the room block that is specified for your conference, what you're going to do is provide the hotel registration list to make sure that nobody is missed. If you're close to attrition, but you haven't hit it, you definitely want to do an audit. So if John Smith is on your registration list, but you know that he's not counted over here, the hotel is going to take everybody in the hotel, as far as who booked a room and cross-reference it with your registration. So if John Smith is over here and John Smith has booked a room, but we didn't count it, now we will. So the audit clause can save you if you're really close on your attrition levels. And then a reduction of food and beverage banquet pricing. We all know that food and beverage pricing has gone up quite a bit since COVID. There's been a lot of reasons for that. But either way, food and beverage pricing is always going to increase gradually throughout the years. And what you're aiming for here is providing more value for the dollar, right? So anything that you can negotiate as far as a percentage off the pricing for the food and beverage to gain more value for your conference is really what you're going to do. On the other hand, that you could also offer for this is if you have a very specific event that you do every year, let's say you have a VIP lunch that is really important to your conference and it has to be at a specific price, and you always have 75 people and you always have it around $125, but it's got to be an elevated, plated, whatever. You can negotiate that into the contract and say, I need an elevated menu for this price point for this amount of people on this day, and it can't exceed this dollar amount. But it's got to be of this level and we have to agree on it. And that can save your costs and still provide a really great value. 3 things for potential for cancellation. Okay, force majeure clause. We're all very familiar with this one because of COVID, right? So this is pandemic language, strikes, but there's a lot of things that are going on in the world right now that could affect cancellation. So be very specific about your force majeure. Talk through if maybe 50% or 25% of the people can't physically come or can't come because there's something going on in the industry. That's a problem and that needs to be in the force majeure. So that language you really need to review. Rebooking clause. Let's say something important happens to the company. Maybe it's acquired, maybe it's split, maybe it's sold. Either way, if any of those things happen and the purpose of the conference is no longer valid, you might want to rebook it now that you have a new direction for the company. If you don't have a rebooking clause in your contract, when you cancel it outright, you now owe the company or owe the hotel money. If a rebooking clause is in there, you can work with the hotel to find a different date to maybe forward those funds and create a different style of event that then has a purpose that is achievable and fun and worth it for your new company, whether it's acquired, sold, or whatever. But you don't want to lose that dollar. So you definitely want to rebook. And the last one is termination. So if you guys are very brand focused and you really like Marriott and you're booking years in advance, because a lot of our clients do. Some people book, we're working on one right now for 28 and soon to be working on 29. So between now and then, that's quite a few years. Again, if you really focus on the brand and for whatever reason the hotel you've selected and signed it on the dotted line is no longer a Marriott, and that's a problem, you need to make sure that that termination for cause is in there, because maybe the product for the hotel has gone down because it's no longer Marriott standards. That could be a problem. So you want the opportunity to change it to make it the best conference experience possible. All right, top 3 to review for concessions. Now we have a laundry list at our company that we use to help get the best deals possible for our clients. But these are 3 that I think are really important that you should definitely include. Room upgrades at the group rate, presidential, leadership, the high-level sponsors, all of them deserve to be appreciated for your conference. And if you get these high-level rooms at the same group rate, what a great opportunity to show some love for the people that are helping you build the conference. It's going to be great for you and your attendees, right? The presidential suites and the higher level suites are also a really good meeting tool for your leadership. Say that your VP of sales wants to meet with each individual salesperson at some point during the conference. A lot of those elevated suites have conference room tables. They can actually have private meetings without having to have a meeting space or showing other people what they're doing, how they're doing it. So it can be a nice private experience for them. Staff rooms, very important. These are the people that are making the magic happen, right? So having a discounted rate for them is amazing. Plus, they're not going to be in those rooms very often anyway. They're going to be running around making sure everything is perfect for you. So getting discounted staff rooms is great. And then complimentary rooms. This is something that's in contracts often, but I wanted to make sure that you pay attention to it because I've seen 1 complimentary room to 50 rooms books. I've seen 1 to 45. I've seen 1 to 40. So be aware of the numbers that are included in this clause and see what you can negotiate that is the best for your conference. All right, now things to note when you're negotiating contracts. Hotel salespeople are amazing representatives of their property. They know the brand, they know the space, they know the hotel rooms, they know anything and everything that you could possibly need to make your conference a success. On their side, just be aware that they are salespeople, right? So the end of the month goal is going to be very important to them, as well as the end of the quarter goal. It is directly linked to their compensation. So when you're negotiating something, just be aware that the closer you are to the end of the month or the closer you are to the end of the quarter, it might be a good negotiation tool to try to see if there's any compromise that we can do and get those signed for both of them so they have that credit for that sale, and then the negotiation for maybe a concession that's best for you, because you never know what they're trying to hit. And I've had a lot of different discussions with a lot of different hoteliers saying, you know what, we don't normally do this, however, we are trying to get this quarter closed and this is important to us, your business is important to us, so we will concede to this concession as long as we do it by this date. And that's great for you and great for them. So just be aware of that. When you start negotiations, like I said, we have that laundry list of concessions. Start at the ones that are most important to you. Do not just send a blanket list of like, hey, we want all these things. Because if you don't care about the VIP amenities that are sent to the 10 people at your conference, but you really care about the 35% discount on power because you use it so often during your conference and it hits your bottom line, start with that. Negotiate the big buckets first and then talk through the little things. And then I always suggest once you get past your concessions and your meeting planner know-how with the different legalese paragraphs, make sure you have your legal team review it before signature. There might be policies or procedures that go on in your corporation that you need to adhere to. So make sure that they have eyes on it. All right, this is the quick recap, understanding the contract. So we talked about the 3 things to protect your bottom line, top 3 to review potential cancellation, and top 3 to review for concessions. And that is what we had for today. I hope that you guys learned something new. I hope you're excited about getting out there and trying to find the perfect event venue or hotel. If anybody dropped any comments or questions into the chat today, I will personally respond to you. I'd be glad to get back to you. And if anybody needs any assistance or wants us to help them find the perfect venue, you can reach out for us to that as well, and I will follow up. All right. I hope you have a fabulous day. Thanks for coming.